Hello, gorgeous souls. This is Deaquilin, and I am super excited about tonight. Thank you for joining me, whether you are here live or whether you're watching the playback. Hi, Melanie. I want to say thank you for joining me for this quick class. I want to share with you tonight 10 things that you must forgive yourself for, or 10 things you need to forgive yourself for. Because here's the thing about forgiveness. Forgiveness is something that I believe that we all have to do. Like, we have to forgive. It is the releasing. It is the letting go of guilt, shame, letting go of offenses, letting go of grievances. And for a lot of us, we hold grievances against ourselves for past mistakes that we have made. And what forgiveness does is it takes you out of that guilt, and takes you out of that holding on, and it releases you in your heart, but also in your mind and in your life. It just opens us up for so much more to happen and flourish in our lives when we are walking in a constant state of forgiveness, especially of self, because we do make mistakes. We are human. And again, every time I talk about forgiveness, I always go back to William Shakespeare's quote: to err is human, but to forgive is divine. And so it takes that divine part of ourselves to forgive others, but also to forgive us. But the other part of that is to err is human, to make mistakes, to get it wrong, and all of that is human, because we are spirits, but we have earthly, everyday human experiences. And in those experiences, we sometimes forget who we really are, and we operate from a space of who we are not. So with that, I want to get right into these, and we're just going to talk a little bit about it. So if you want to share anything in the comments while I'm talking about these points, then please feel free to do so. 10 things. These are 10 things that you need to forgive yourself for. The first one is you need to forgive yourself for making everyone a priority over you. For making everyone a priority over you. A lot of us, especially women, we tend to take on everybody else's issues and everybody else's thing, and we make everybody else a priority, and then we go to bed tired, and we repeat that same cycle every single day, and we make everybody a priority over us. So we have to get to a space where we begin to make ourselves a priority. If in any way that you've not made yourself a priority, I want to encourage you to number one, forgive yourself for that, but also to just make yourself a priority. Hello, thank you for joining. Make yourself a priority. What that means is putting yourself in your schedule, putting yourself in your to-do list, putting yourself in your everyday activities, and doing something for yourself. I know we talked about these self-love languages, the same as love languages, but the self-love languages. Pick a language and do that for yourself. Whatever makes you feel good, do something for yourself, but make yourself a priority. I remember when my sister first passed away, and I had decided to keep our children together for like the first 2 years. I was all about, everybody else has to go to their doctor's visits, their eye doctor, their regular doctor's appointments. My niece Brittany, who has special needs, I was taking her to the doctor. She had all kinds of specialists, still does, but she had different specialists and all of this. So it was taking everybody to the doctor, making sure that she was transitioning from child care to adult care. It was so much happening, and I started getting sick. And it was like, why am I getting sick? Well, I had made my own doctor's appointments a priority. And I had to stop and say, let me put myself into this schedule. Let me put myself into this mix, and started making myself a priority. So that is something that you definitely have to forgive yourself for, is making everyone a priority over you. The second one is you want to forgive yourself for not listening to your body. Not listening to your body. So many times let's say you just get a headache. That headache may mean for you to drink more water. Or maybe your body, because here's the thing that we don't talk about a lot regarding our bodies, is that our emotions show up in our bodies. So when you get a queasy stomach or something, or maybe your heart flutters or whatever, that's your body, that's your emotion showing up in your body. And a lot of times we ignore it and we just keep going and not pay attention and not listen and not even ask it, what is it here for? What are you showing me? Whatever. We need to start acknowledging when our body gives us signals and when our body tells us either it's time to slow down, it's time to stop, it's time to do whatever it is that our bodies is telling us to do. So make sure that you listen to your body. If you have not been listening to your body, it's okay. Forgive yourself, but just start listening to your body. Just take a moment. This is why in our last week's class that I talked about, was it last week? Yes, about checking in with yourself. So make sure that you check in with yourself, which also means checking in with your body. In the Work University, we have this thing where we just do a body scan. I've taught it a couple of times where you just close your eyes and you pay attention to your body. You can either go from the crown of your head down to your feet, or you can start with your feet and work your way up. But what you're doing is you're paying attention to every part of your body, just sensing any sensations or any flutters or any pain or aches or whatever you're feeling in your body, and you just go and you just scan. But another part of this that I also teach is not just scan your body, but give gratitude for your body, because we don't appreciate our bodies enough, and our bodies are houses for the spirit that we are, and they are vehicles, and in this vehicle you navigate through life. And speaking of vehicle, the same way that if you're driving a car and a car indicator light comes on, that's sometimes what our body does. It gives us an indication that we need to stop and pay attention. Ian Van Zant says pain stands for stop, pay attention inward now. And so whenever we feel something within our physical bodies, then we need to stop and pay attention to whatever that is. And again, even if it's something as simple as drink more water or rest, don't overexert yourself, pay attention. So that was number 2. Forgive yourself for not listening to your body. Number 3, this one is a favorite because I have had to learn this over the past few years specifically, but saying yes when you really meant no. Saying yes when you really meant no. You have to forgive yourself. Hello, thank you for joining us. Forgive yourself for saying yes when you really meant no. And I know you know what that means. I'm sure that you probably already thought of a condition or situation where you said yes when you really meant no. I like to say it this way. We have to be intentional with our yes, and we also have to be intentional with our no. The Bible even says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. A lot of times we think that we have to explain when we say yes and explain when we say no. We don't always have to explain. Hi, Laverne, thank you for joining. We don't always have to explain. Just say yes or say no intentionally. But this one is specifically about saying yes when you really meant no. And what we do when we do that is we beat ourselves up, and we're playing it back in our heads. I knew I should have said no. I don't know why I said yes, because I have this, and this going on, or whatever your reasons are. We play it over and over and over again in our heads. And when we do that, what we're doing is we are sending a message to our soul, and that the soul is receiving that message saying, feeling that grievance that we have created within ourselves because we didn't honor ourselves by saying no. We didn't honor ourselves by saying no. And absolutely, no is a complete sentence. It doesn't need an explanation. And it feels so good. Let me say this, because when I first started, I used to always feel like I had to explain everything. If I said no, I need to give an explanation. And then Spirit just started saying, you don't need to explain, just say no. And I just started saying no. And at first, the people in my life were kind of thrown back by it because they were so used to me giving them an explanation. And then when I stopped giving them an explanation, it's like, well, she said no. Like that was it. Like it's my no is no. No explanation needed. I no. So you're right. No definitely is a complete sentence. Number 4, the fourth thing that we need to forgive ourselves for is constantly comparing yourself to others. I talk about this a lot because especially with social media, if you start scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, before you know it, you will start comparing yourself to other people. Yes, I said what I said. Exactly. She said what she said. But you'll start comparing yourself to other people. And so when you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, you are telling yourself and you are telling God that, number one, you're telling God that God did not create you or make you right. You're saying you got it wrong, but you're also telling yourself you're not good enough. And that breeds inadequacy, that breeds insecurity, that breeds low self-worth and low self-esteem. So you have to pull yourself out of that by stop comparing yourself to others. If that means unfollowing people on social media that you're constantly comparing yourself to, do that. Block them. I don't know if that's a thing that you can block somebody from you not seeing their content or whatever, but block them, or just stop scrolling sometimes. Just stop comparing yourself to other people. Because like I said, that opens up a whole world of that low self-worth, low self-esteem, and feeling of inadequacy and all of that. The thing about that is, I like to say it this way, that the ego makes you feel like you're either superior to other people or inferior to other people. And either way, they are not how God sees us. So if you feel superior, then that's not how God sees you. He doesn't see you as superior over anybody else. And also, God does not see you as inferior or under anyone else. And so with that, you have to be mindful that as you are comparing yourself to other people, what you've done is you stepped into your ego mind. And the ego mind lives by comparison. And in order for you to separate yourself, you got to stop the comparison. Stop the comparison. Whatever barrier you need to build, and also not even just the barrier of unfollowing and not scrolling and things like that, but also telling yourself who you really are. Telling yourself that you are God's child, that God made you perfect, whole, and complete, that you are made in the image and likeness of God, and you are as God created you. One of my favorite workbook lessons from A Course in Miracles, lesson number 94, I believe, I am as God created me. And guess what? That person, they are as God created them. So don't compare yourself to others. Or forgive yourself for constantly comparing yourself to others. The fifth thing to forgive yourself for is staying longer than you should have. Staying longer than you should have. This could be a relationship. It could be a job. Hi, Jackie. It could be a city. You know, maybe you stayed longer in a city than you should have, and maybe God told you to leave. I know for me, when I went through a divorce, God was telling me that he wanted me to move back to my hometown. And I remember saying, nope, I'm not. I actually tried to move to Atlanta. I actually had a job opportunity that I found for myself through a friend. And literally, the job opportunity was created, and then the week that I was saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and move, I'm going to go ahead and accept this position, they said, well, we're no longer going to offer that position. So it was created, and then God was dealing with me, and then the job went away. And then, of course, the next thing, because I kept saying, I'll move as close as I can, but I don't want to move back. I don't want to move back. And ended up actually doors were starting to shut. I was going to move to Nashville because I was just trying to get as close as I could, but not really be where God wanted me to be. And that's what happens when we stay longer than we should have. It's because God is wanting us to be in a certain place or a set place. And we are, and when I say set place, I'm talking about maybe a set relationship, a set job, a set city, a set life or lifestyle. But we are so stuck in what we become acclimated to, or we are afraid to even step out and do something different. So we stay longer than we should have. So if you've stayed longer than you should have in any condition or any situation, break free. Break free. And the way you do that is step out on faith. Step out on faith and do something new and do something different. So my story. So God closed all the doors, and I went to my boss and told my boss, certain things that was happening in my life, and my dad had started getting sick. So I was like, I'll go anywhere, God. I am not going back. Nope. I was like adamant. I'm not going back. And I went to talk to my boss, and she was like, well, let's just make next Friday your last day. And I'm looking at her like, I didn't come in here to quit. I came in here to tell you what's going on in my life. And, I haven't been able to focus. I just went through this divorce and all this stuff is happening. And when she said that, I knew within my heart of hearts that was what I was supposed to do. So I just accepted it. I cried. I was like, okay, we can do that. And I think for those 2 weeks that I packed my bags, I cried the whole 2 weeks. It was an 8-hour drive from St. Louis to Birmingham. And for the first 4 of those 8 hours, I lamented. I cried because it was like, I do not want to go back. But it turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me, and especially my family, because when my sister passed away, I was in position to be able to take care of her children. But yeah, trust me, I wasn't coming back. But if I had stayed longer than I should have, I would have been outside of the will of God and outside of the place that God had me at. So if you have been staying in any condition or situation or any relationship longer than you should have, forgive yourself, and then step out on faith. Just take a step out. I promise you, when you take a step out on faith, you're covered. All is well. So that is number 5. The 6th thing that you need to forgive yourself for is being too hard on yourself. So many of us are so hard on ourselves. We have constant negative self-talk. We talk so down to ourselves when we make mistakes. We call ourselves all kinds of names in our heads and sometimes with our mouths, stupid and I don't know why and all of this other things. And so you have to really forgive yourself for being hard on yourself, because the more you do that, the more you sort of I'm going to say reprogram your belief system, and your belief system start to believe that this is how you are, actually is verbal abuse to yourself. And the more we do that, just like you can verbally abuse a child, and that child can't see themselves above the thing that they've been abused in, what they've been told. The same thing happens to us in our subconscious mind. We are reprogramming ourselves, and that we create conditions and situations that will bring those hardships on us because we were too hard on ourselves by what we said or what we did, or how we lived or whatever. We just really get really hard on ourselves. Number 6, the 6th thing that we need to forgive ourselves for is seeking approval and validation apart from God. Seeking approval and validation apart from God. Absolutely, Laverne, God knows all, and God will lead us and guide us, but we have to trust God. But number 7 is seeking approval and validation apart from God. I have a video here on Instagram where I talked about people pleasing, and for me it was I was so caught up in seeking validation from other people that I put myself in a prison of doing everything that I felt was going to make people happy or make people see me, make people notice me. And what that did for me was absolutely nothing but put me in bondage, put me in a people-pleasing bondage, because I was seeking validation from those people. Here's the thing about seeking validation from people. People's opinions always change. God's truth and how God sees you never changes. And if you are trying to please a person whose opinion will change from today to tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, you will always be finding yourself doing all of these things to make a person happy that will never be happy or will never be satisfied. But God knows the truth of who you are. And the truth of who you are is you are made in the image and likeness of God. You are as God created you. And because you are whole, that's the only validation that you need. I am as God created me. It doesn't matter what the world thinks or what the world sees or the people in your life see or the people in your life think. What matters is what God thinks. So if you have been seeking approval and validation from other people apart from God, then you need to forgive yourself. Extend that grace to yourself and forgive yourself. Number 8 is for accepting less than God's best. Accepting less than God's best. And I know that this one is a lot of times related to our, our upbringing and some programming that we have within us. But because if you, like I was just talking about, you constantly telling a child, hello, thank you for joining. If you're constantly telling a child or putting a child down, what happens is, they have this mindset. So it's the programming. And so when you are living in less than God's best, you are living inside of a program that maybe someone else put or embedded in you. And so in order for you to break free from that, you're going to have to cling to God, understand and learn what God's thoughts are of you, what God's will is for your life, and live according to that. And when you do, then I always like to say it this way: God wills nothing but the best for us. God wills nothing but the best for all of us. And so we have to allow ourselves to accept the will of God. For me, for a long time, I used to be afraid to pray, God, let your will be done in my life. Because in my mind, and based on my upbringing too, I always looked at that as something that was bad and terrible. And that, if the will of God happens in my life, then everything is going to fall apart. Sometimes things fall apart. But let me tell you why they fall apart. Because when you ask for God's will to be done in your life, what happens is the will of God, there are certain people in your life that God didn't will to be in your life, or certain places or conditions, or even certain jobs that God didn't will to be in your life. So when you ask for the will of God to be done in your life, God's will is the best for you. So things will start to fall apart or fall away. I'm not going to say fall apart, fall away from you, because they are not God's will for you. But if you would just surrender yourself, surrender your whole heart, surrender your mind, surrender your life to the will of God, then God will start to bring people and conditions and situations in your life that is His will. So that is number 8, forgive yourself for accepting less than God's best. Number 9 is forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made. I'm a living witness, and I can raise my hand and jump up and down and everything. I have made so many mistakes in my life. As a matter of fact, I'm in a condition situation right now where I made a mistake. And I'm seeing, the direct result of that. Like, I made a mistake, and, it happened. But one of the things that I had to do was extend grace and forgive myself. We all make mistakes. We all do things, because like I said at the onset of starting this message is, we are human. We are human. We are what we are is we are spiritual beings and we have human experiences. But for a lot of people, we're not connected to our spiritual side, our divine side, or like I like to call it, our godness. A lot of us are not connected. And even if you are connected, you don't have that 24-hour constant connection. And so you're going to make a mistake. Somebody may say something or do something, or you may decide to say something or do something. And maybe you react to what someone else did, or maybe you just initiated it yourself. But you have to forgive yourself for those mistakes that you made. And when you begin to forgive yourself for those mistakes, and even verbally say, I forgive myself for that mistake. But here's the thing, I always like to say this, that our mistakes are tools for mastery. It's a lesson for you to learn in that mistake. So I don't really necessarily believe that mistakes are necessarily mistakes if you learn a lesson from it. But you have to forgive yourself. Whether you learn the lesson or not, forgive yourself. But look for the lesson in the mistake. So forgive yourself for the mistakes you have made. And then number 10 is forgive yourself for giving up on yourself. So many of us, and I say us because I've done it a few times in my life, we give up on ourselves. We give up on our dreams, our goals, our aspirations. We give up on, what we want in life, our desires. We give up. We even give up on just who we are, who we know we are in our hearts. Our hearts, we just give up because we don't see things happening in the time frame that we want them to happen, or for whatever reason, and we just give up. Here's the thing, you cannot give up. Because if you're giving up, what you're saying is, I'm giving up on God. I'm giving up on God. Because God lives in us and God dwells in us, and God is going to lead us to our expected end if we trust and if we take the proper action and if we do what we are supposed to do. In our I have my email list is I call my email list my Inner Glow Circle. And every Monday, or I'm going to say Monday or Tuesday, because a couple of times I did on Tuesday. But every Monday, I try to every Monday send out a weekly message. I mean, the message goes out every week. It's just not always on Mondays. And so that's something that I forgive myself for now that I'm talking about it. In the message, not this week, but last week's message, I talked about giving up and how not to give up. And I actually posted that in my stories. If you go to the Inner Work stories here on Instagram, you'll see that. But I want to give you an acronym that I created for how not to give up. Number 1 is you want to give the situation over to God. Number 2, you want to intently listen for guidance. Number 3 is you want to voice your feelings in a healthy way. Number 4 is you want to exercise your faith. Number 5, you want to uproot any defeated mindset, because that's why we give up. We feel defeated in our minds. And then number 6 is you want to pray your way through. That's how you get to a space where you don't give up. You follow those steps, and I promise you, you're going to gain the strength, the wisdom, the knowledge, the guidance, everything you need to get to the other side. And here's the thing, whatever you give up, you can't get what you give up. If you want a dream marriage, dream mate in marriage or whatever, if you actually give up that goal or that desire, you won't get it. You won't get what you give up. So keep that in mind, but forgive yourself for giving up on yourself. Here's the thing, self-forgiveness is a major part of self-love. And self-love is what I teach through the inner work. I teach women how to heal themselves through inner work, how to honor, empower, accept, and love themselves through inner work. And so self-forgiveness is a major part of that. When you forgive yourself, you do all four. You honor yourself, you empower yourself, you accept yourself. No, accept accept yourself, and you love yourself for who you really are. So also too, the other thing about self-forgiveness is it liberates the soul and it invites peace into your life. If you've ever forgiven anybody or any condition or any situation, you experience a peace unlike anything else. When you really surrender something and you let it go, and you really totally forgive. I like to say forgiveness, and I actually had this thought and then I read it in a book, but forgiveness is an exchange, meaning that for my peace, I give this to God. So that's what the forgive is. For my happiness, or for my sanity, or for my healing, I give this particular condition, person, grievance over to God. So make sure that you operate in forgiveness. So I wanted to share with you in my workbook here, the Gorgeous Soul workbook, we have this exercise, and it's actually two-part exercise. Number one is my apology to me, and you write an apology. What do you need to apologize to yourself for? Because it's sometimes, I'm going to say sometimes because it's not always, but sometimes it's easy for us to apologize to somebody else. Well, have you ever apologized to yourself? Like, have you ever said, I really apologize for whatever it is? So do that, and then forgive yourself. Not only do I apologize, but I forgive. Now, let me say this. You don't always need, and this goes for forgiveness in general, but you don't always need an apology to forgive. But for the sake of this exercise, there may be something that you may need to apologize to yourself for. Maybe you need to apologize for not eating properly. Maybe you need to apologize for, like I talked about, like saying yes when you should have said no. So I want to encourage you to just do this exercise for yourself. But this is my Gorgeous Soul workbook, and I am super, super, super duper excited because I created a 10-week program called Gorgeous Soul, and we will start in January. However, we're going to start doing some pre-work, and so I want to encourage you to join the join the waiting list, because I'm only going to accept 25 women in the program. And what will happen is you're going to get the paperback copy of the book, and you're also going to be inside of Inner Work University, and we're going to have Skype sessions. Not Skype sessions, Zoom sessions. I said Skype. Zoom sessions. I do a weekly guided affirmation inside of Inner Work University, and guided affirmation is similar to guided meditation, where people tell you to breathe and meditate. Well, I don't tell you to breathe. We focus on our words. We focus on affirming the life that we want, affirming new truths. So we say powerful statements, and then we breathe and integrate those words into our lives. Also, we have a beautiful virtual sacred space where you'll be able to come into our virtual sacred space and connect with other women. But again, only accepting 25 women for this, because I wanted to keep it small so that we can get to know each other and create like a sisterhood. If you're interested in joining the waiting list, click the link in my bio, or I will post it somewhere around this video, where you can actually join the waiting list. And once you're on the waiting list, you're going to get some details within the next few days about the program, and it's going to lay out all of the classes that we're going to have over a 10-week time frame, using this workbook as our guide. It's so many things in here to do. Like, this is a 113-page workbook, so there's so much for us to do. So get on the waiting list, and once you get on the waiting list, you'll get the information. And then after you get the information, if you say yes, then once you say yes, you're and we get you registered, then you'll get a copy of this workbook. And then don't do the workbook until we get ready to start the program, because the program is definitely going to be centered around this. So I'm excited about that. So I hope that you join the waiting list, because like I said, in the next few days, I will be sending out more information. Thank you also, Laverne. I appreciate you. And thank you, ladies, for joining me. So now I just want to hang out.